Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to this week's content for PUBH 4012, Application of Standards for Sterilisation Practice. So this week we're going to focus solely on the audit and preparing for your assessment. So most of you hopefully will have already finished or carried out your audit, or will be doing so hopefully over the next few days, so that then in the coming weeks you can then develop your report and complete this assessment based on that audit. So what I wanted to spend some time today going over is the content that I've put up this week and explaining how I want you to use the resources that you have available. So from our main page, if you scroll down to week 15, assessment preparation audit, there is some resources here that are not new. So all of these resources are already on Moodle, but they're kind of scattered all over the place. So some of you might not have found them or read them. So I just firstly wanted to put them all in one place. What I'm going to do briefly today with each section is to make sure you understand what's required and how I want you to use these documents. So all of these documents are essential for you to develop your submission for assessment to your audit report. Okay, so we're going to start at the top here. So marking schedule. Now this, if you haven't used it before, you may or may not have used it for assessment 1. It is a resource that you should absolutely utilize to make sure you perform as best you possibly can in this assessment. Okay, so it should be used at just about every phase of you developing your report. So in the planning phase, so when you're thinking about where to put your time and energy and words when you're putting your audit report together, in the kind of writing phase, so you make sure you cover everything that you need to, and also in the proofing phase to make sure when you look back that you think, so at some point you need to assess whether your assignment or your submission has met the requirements so that you can adequately complete and pass this assessment. Okay, so this is what the having the marking criteria there is for. So the marking criteria itself, it's a table that looks like this. There's a couple of important aspects that I want to point out to you. So the first thing is that it will, in this column here, it has the required criteria. So these are the things you need to do for this assessment. They relate directly to the learning outcomes for your course, and this is why you're being assessed against them. Okay, so looking at that specifically, provide a brief historical introduction, 5%. So that's 5 out of a total of 50. So if you add up those numbers, they'll add up to 50. Reprocessing cycle is audited. So the audit itself and any corridor related to that is worth 20%. The compliance to industry standards. So when you talk about the findings of your audits and relate those back to the standards and whether they comply or don't comply, that's worth 10%, so 10 out of 50. And then the last two, evidence of reading and integrating literature and the accuracy of your APA references, that's worth 10%. And then structure and organisation is basically just around how well written and how well structured your report is. So even though you've got a template there, you should still write in paragraphs, grouping your ideas together, using those APA references, and because it's a report, you can use headings, so that can save you a little bit of time in terms of having an introduction sentence to each paragraph so we understand what it is. You can use headings in a report. So that should give you an idea about where the work should be within this assessment. So when we look at that overall, so if we look at these two sections here, so the auditing a reprocessing cycle and determining the compliance to industry standards, that's worth a total of 30 marks out of 50. So that's where the bulk of the work in this assignment should be. Your introduction, while it's important, is not as important as these things because they relate more directly to the learning outcomes for your course. You can see the academic qualities, so add those two together, 10% and 15%. So your APA referencing, your integration of your literature and the organisation you're writing, still important, but still only worth half of what these are. Okay, so that's where your time and energy goes. And in terms of your word count, these three aspects here, so compliance and the audits and the introduction, they're going to form 1,500 to 2,000 words is the guideline. Okay, so make sure you stay within that. So at least 1,500, but not over 2,000. You should split that word count out based on what's going on here. So most of that word count should relate to auditing the reprocessing cycle. So what your observations were and how those relate to the standards. The second biggest part will be the compliance to industry standards. So when you start to write about non-compliance, partial compliance, full compliance, any of those things that happened, and what I've suggested to students so far is focus on non-compliance first. If your audit was poor and you have a lot to write about there, then you will write less about the compliance aspects of that. However, if there was only a couple of things, or maybe there was nothing that you picked up for non-compliance, or maybe only a couple of partially attained compliance aspects, then you might only need a few paragraphs there, and you might have to highlight the areas of compliance there. So we're looking for understanding. So if it was amazing audit and you had no areas of non-compliance, you still need to write a good amount of words talking about how your processes or how the audit highlighted how your service does comply with those standards. Okay, in terms of the document and its relevance for your workplace, those areas of partial compliance or non-compliance would be important in terms of management, then looking at the systems, the training, the procedures, the education of the staff, all of those things to try and address any areas of non-compliance and bring it up to the appropriate level there. Okay, so start with areas of non-compliance first and fully explore those. Whatever word count you've got left over there, then put that energy into talking about how your audit did show compliance. Okay, so the second part, the audit tools themselves. So hopefully you guys have seen these. Like I said, some of you will have completed the audit or will be completing it over the next few days. I encourage you to make sure that you've got it done before the end of this week so you have time to prepare the report. So the audit is only a small part of this assessment. The report and the interpretation of those results is what we're really looking for you to be able to show your understanding there. Okay, so you've got, please make notes that you only choose one template to use for your audit. So we've got two kind of options available there. The most common one that most people will go for is the mechanical cleaning audit, which is focused on the loading of your general instrument and minimally invasive carriages. Or you can have a look at high-level gap analysis where you look at the documentation around those mechanical washers. So go back to your logbooks and assess the compliance of those towards the standards. So you choose one. Don't give me both. You choose one and do it really well. If there is, and I've just noted there, we encourage you to add any criteria there. So there's a template. Add any criteria there. And I'm just going to go into it really briefly here. We encourage you to add in any criteria that you need to. So when you scroll down to the parts here, so for this mechanical cleaning audit, the first 5 criteria there are just for the general instrument carriage. Okay, so you check off those. So you should have at least 3 checks in each of that section. Minimally invasive instrument carriage, again, you should have at least 3. You can choose to do more depending on the day and the time of the audit. In this other section, we encourage you to put in here any other criteria related to that process that is appropriate in your workplace, okay? That you can, again, link back to the standards, okay? So when you do that, you should be applying and you should be relating that back to your own practice. So we encourage you to do that. Same with the gap analysis. So those criteria are important. So the ones we've got there, use them. Add any in that you think are appropriate or are necessary or that you want to include in your kōrero. If there is another type of audit that you would like to do because it's more appropriate for your workplace, or let's say your supervisor or your manager says, hey, we would really like an audit in this space done, please have a kōrero with either myself or Alison, and we can help you develop a template for that. Okay, for most of you, either of these 2 will be appropriate, so you just choose one. If your workplace doesn't suit that, or your supervisor has said to you, I want you to do a different type of audit, then come and talk to us about it first, so we make sure that it's appropriate, it's at the right level for the level that you're at, and it can be fairly assessed against all of your classmates as well. So we need some consistency there. Okay, calculating compliance from your audits. The resource there again is just around helping you understand how you work out those percentages. So I'm not going to go into the details there. In terms of showing you that, hopefully you've already seen that. If you haven't, I encourage you to have a look. So it shows you which numbers to take and grab and use in your calculations, so that when you talk about percentages for fully attained, partially attained, unattained, or not applicable, you know what numbers to use and how. Okay, if that's kind of confusing for you and you look at that resource and you still can't figure out what's going on, then please do make contact and we can spend a little bit of time going over that a little bit. Some people are comfortable with the maths thing, some people numbers isn't their thing, and if you need a little bit more support there, then please just let us know. All right, and then the audit report itself. So again, the template is there for you to use. You fill in the sections that are appropriate, and then you go and write the kōrero that you need to write to fulfill that marking criteria. So again, you're always going back to that, referring to that, making sure that your work is at the standard and covers everything you need to cover, pretty much. So again, you only want to start doing that or start thinking about writing that once you've finished your audit. Okay, so don't even open that document unless you've done your audit, you've got that completed, you've worked out your percentages. Once you're there and you've got that information, then you can start to plan and write and develop the report itself. Okay, so the report template is there. Again, it's the same one that's in the assessment the section of the Moodle page, so it's nothing new. All of this stuff is all on the Moodle page already. Here's the stuff I want you guys to really make sure that you have a look at. Okay, so I probably shouldn't have put it at the bottom. Put it in bold letters to do not skip this. Essential APA referencing resources required. There was definitely some work that needs to be done across the board for most students in this area. Now, I understand that these assessments or this paper is your first exposure to APA, so I'm not expecting that you end up being experts by the time you finish this assessment, but your skills in using APA referencing should improve with every assessment you do. So what I want you to think about and make sure is go back to the feedback that I gave you for assessment 1. If I told you it was awesome, then pat yourself on the back and move on and apply that to your second assessment, the audit report. If there's feedback there or areas that I've said to you, hey, this doesn't line up with APA format, then I suggest you go back and take that feedback and then go and engage in some of these resources to help you understand how to better execute APA referencing. Okay, So the resources are here. I'm going to put some practical exercises up in the content for next week, which I'll probably get up later on this week, so that we've got it all up for you guys to have a crack at. These here, so the quick guide. If anything, if you were to take one resource here that would be the most important that you'd refer to every single time you're doing an assessment, I would use this one. Okay, so our quick guide. It breaks down really well, in a nutshell, how you cite and how you reference the major type of resources you need to reference. So number one, book or ebook. Scoot down to books and journal articles are probably the most common things you reference. So on the left-hand side there, this is what it should look like in text. Here is what you would do if you were putting it at the end of a sentence, or if you're using it in a sentence or at the beginning, you would reference it that way. So author, comma, year. If it's at the end of the sentence, make sure you put a full stop after the end of the brackets. And then if you're using it in a sentence, you would put author's name in the sentence and then the year in brackets. Okay. In this section, this is what your reference list entry should look like. Okay. So these are all the bits of information that you need: author, year, title of the journal, issue and volume numbers, page numbers, and then either a DOI or a URL. So in this case, because it's online and it has a DOI, so digital object identifying number, then you would quote that. If it doesn't have a DOI or you can't find one and you've accessed it online, you should use the URL. So you just grab the URL from your web browser, cut and paste it into the end of your reference there. Okay. To make it easier for formatting, I suggest that you remove the hyperlink, just so that it doesn't upset your formatting. So the one thing you'll notice here, and some of you missed out when you formatted your references in the first assessment, is that you need to have that hanging indent, so that the first line is left aligned, the second line of your each reference and subsequent lines. So like with this one here, where there's more than one line after that, you can see those. The hanging indent there is in by about 1.5 centimeters. Okay. If we keep scrolling down, so it's got all kinds of different things there. So the two most common things that are referenced in academic work would be books or journal articles. As we scroll down, we'll see a few different things. Scrolling. Online reports, websites, video recording, blog posts. Please make sure for these assessments that I do not want you referencing the lecture notes. I want you to reference directly to the standards. That's what we're trying to assess you against, and your knowledge of those standards to apply them. Okay. Scroll down to number 18. What have we got? Cool. Industry standards. So this will show you exactly how you need to reference this. So in text, your reference looks like this. Now, sometimes for the standards that it can be confusing. So I know for me that when I read sometimes this work, I struggle to remember which one of the standards is 2006, which one's 2008, which one's 2014. Because when you look at your in-text referencing, all the information that you have there is the author and the year. So you don't have the name of it, you don't have the number, so you don't have 4187, you just have the author and the year. Okay, so really important to remember. If when you write your essay, you put that in there so it helps you as you write it to understand what you're talking about and which standard you're talking about. You would need to then, once you've finished writing your report and you're ready for submission when you're doing the proof, is to take all of that information out and just put these in. So either, again, at the end of the sentence, Standards New Zealand and the year, or Standards Australia and Standards New Zealand and the year, or author and year, depending on how you use it in your text. Okay, so again, we'll do some practical exercises in the next installment next week, once we're getting close to that kind of proofing and editing phase, once hopefully you've done your writing. And then the reference list entry. So again, for us, be Standards Australia, Standards New Zealand, the year, the name, the abbreviation and the number, and then the URL is sufficient. This URL here, https://standards.gov.nz, is sufficient. You don't need to have the specific web page for that particular standard. Okay, so standards are a little bit interesting because obviously not everybody can access them. So just that is enough in your reference list for there. Okay, so that's probably the most important of the resources there. So you can go and have a look and go, does my reference list entry look like this? No, it doesn't. What have I missed out? What have I forgotten? Okay. If you go back to here, APA, OWL Interactive by Massey University. Really cool interactive tool. I'm going to show you briefly here because I think it is so awesome. So when you go to that link, so there's a link to it there. There's also a link in the academic skills section. But again, I've just put these all together so they're on the same spot for you. APA Interactive, you can see it comes up with pictures of different types of resources. So the coolest thing about this is to help your understanding. So let's go to journal article. That's probably the most common thing you're going to reference in your reference list. If I click on journal article, I have a whole lot of different options here for what I want to do. So if it has got two authors, then I can change this example based on what you've got here. So if I've got 3 to 20 authors, okay, it shows me how to put that into here. Okay, it shows you what to do if you can't find a year or you don't have a year for your reference. It shows you what to do if it's an internet source or a print source. So it differs. You can see there print source. You don't have anything after the volume there. You might, but if it's an internet source, then you would have a URL. If it's an internet source with a DOI, then you would obviously have that DOI reference there as well. Okay. So one of the best things here, so that's your reference list entry. The cool thing is I can hover over any one of these and it'll give me more detail. So let's have a look at the journal name. So journal title tells you about the format. Write it in italics, end with a comma. All words in the name should begin with an uppercase letter except minor words like and the. Where is it? So information on where to find it. And you can also it's got more information there. So it allows you to explore different parts of that, and it gives you further information or quote it all to help you understand it. Okay. The coolest thing is when you get to bits like this where you go, authors, oh man, where do I put the commas? Where do I put the full stops? Where do I put, any of those things you need to know? You can just click on that section and it gives you information about that. So a really cool tool to help you in understanding. If I click up here, in-text citation, it'll tell me how to do your in-text citations. Okay, again, you can change this. Okay, and it will change what this looks like and tell you what you need to do. All right, again, if I go, let's go back to here. Let's go to authors. Okay, so it tells you the different formats here. So if it's used in a sentence, like this, according to Smith and Kahn 2009, the best source, blah, 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 blah. Or appearing in brackets if you use it at the end of a sentence. So your sentence is written, and then you put Smith and Kahn, comma, 2009. or if you're using a quote, which I encourage you not to do a lot of, because we're looking for understanding in your assessments, and just kind of throwing quotes at me from the standards doesn't show your understanding. You should do it like this. So that's according to Smith and Kahn, 2019. This is the only time you use a page number, as if you're doing a direct quotation. Okay, otherwise it is not necessary in your in-text citation. Okay, and then you put your quotation there in marks. Okay, more information. Okay, so it's got, if you want specific information on quotation, you can get it there as well. So you can see that tool, all I wanted to show you is a really cool tool that you can use to help your understanding of APA referencing. So if there was 2 resources that I encourage you to use every time you submit an assessment, the APA quick guide from the Toi on My Koha site is one, and the PDF document's right there. The second one is the OWL Interactive link, the web link, Massey University. It's open, so open source, anybody can use it. You can see there it's got some really good resources in helping you understand APA referencing and what you need to do. There's also 2 other sources there. So referencing presentation. So we're one of our learning facilitators from Toi on My team steps you through referencing and in-text citation. Okay, so you'll see some of the same things that you saw in the quick guide documents and OWL Interactive, but it's a video if you prefer to watch that with so they'll be talking through a PowerPoint presentation. And here I'll show you this one briefly as well. So the referencing help resources from Koha site. So that link will take you to this page. Library guides. It's got all of the things that we've talked about. The quick guide is there. You'll see the Massey University thing is here. APA style tutorial, so that has information about how your APA document should be formatted. And again, video guides. So all of our library resources about creating a reference list using in-text citations. So you can go directly to those and have a look there as well. So there's all of those resources to help you understand APA referencing for your assessments. Okay, so I've put them here. Nobody can tell me this time around that they didn't know that they were there and didn't know where to find them. So use them and try and help yourself improve your knowledge and your skills around APA referencing. So like I said, don't expect you to be an expert by the time you finish this assessment, but you should hopefully know a little bit more about what you did last time. And the next assessment you complete for 4013, when you move on to there, you'll be a little bit better than the last time as well, and you improve so that, like I've been using APA for many, many years now in my own studies, and every time I run a workshop for my students, my on-campus students, I'm always learning things that I didn't know. So there's always at least a couple of nuggets of information, and I'm like, hey, I never actually knew that. So even though like you can have been doing this for many, many years, I'm not by any means a guru, but I know a little bit because I've made the mistakes, had the experience, and improved on the way along. And I've probably just done it a few more times than you guys, so I can help you there. Understand that we're not looking for you to be APA experts. We're just looking for you to understand a little bit more each time you use it in an assessment, so that when you look back and you're producing documents outside of this academic space, that can really add weight or value to any documents you write in that workspace. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. That has taken longer than I expected, but I think I wanted to make sure that you knew what was there, you knew why I had put it there this week, and these are the resources that are super important as you develop your assessment, your audit. So remember, you're focusing on the audit themselves. There'll be more detail, some more practical exercises in the next week's session on the report itself and what I expect there, and some interactive activities around the referencing thing, because I know it's something that having some practical exercises that you can do and kind of make mistakes and learn along the way is really important. And that's kind of why I like that OWL tool from Massey, because you can explore that and dig deeper in terms of understanding how and why, which might help you using it in your assessments. So soldier on with your audits. Hopefully most of you have got them done or are doing them over the next few days. I will put up information for about next week's content that relate directly to the report. I'll make sure I have that up later this week. Okay, so focus on your audit itself. Please send through your drafts to my email, so craig.davey@toyohomai.co.ac.nz rather, sorry. So if you want specific feedback on what you've done, if you want me to have a look at your audit before you start your report, then I encourage you to do that. So pick up any of those errors that you might have missed before you start writing about it and invest any more time and energy into it. Some students have already sent me the audit and the report. I'm happy to feedback on both. Again, this is all part of the process of you learning and understanding how to plan and how to write reports and essays and develop those competencies and skills that Cam talked about in our assessment presentation right back at the start. So, yeah, go to it. Enjoy. Stay safe. Any questions, please email me. Happy to jump on the phone or Teams. And if you have any issue, anything comes up, work-wise or family-wise, that means you might not be able to meet the original deadline or target, please contact me. The most important thing is you need to communicate. So some students have got caught out with assessment 1 and, life gets busy, things happen that we have very little control over. So if you have some of that stuff happen and it impacts your ability to study and you need another few days or a week or some support, then please do contact me. The other person that I encourage those that struggled with assessment 1 to do is engage Ruth Thomas. So that's our learning facilitator. Again, you can contact her via email, ruth.thomas@toyohomai.ac.nz to book an appointment. They do online appointments that where she can help you and give you the skills and strategies to successfully plan and develop and submit these assessments. So if you struggled, you might have passed, but you weren't happy with how well you passed, or you might have not passed and want to do better this time, I encourage you to engage that as well. So I'll give you the support and feedback that I can. Ruth has got even more expertise in that learning space and got skills and strategies that might be really helpful to you. So I encourage you to engage in that. So I'm going to sign off there. Ka kite, we'll see you all soon. Stay safe. And the other thing that I'll put up information about over the next couple of days is question and answer. So live sessions next week at some point, probably early in the week. And so that I can field those questions that you've got as you start to develop this assessment. I'm looking at 2 different time slots to try and fit around what around shift work. I know I'm probably not going to get everybody, but probably going to do something around 10 o'clock so that those that are working kind of afternoon or night shifts will be able to jump in, and one at 8 p.m. So those that have kind of had early shifts or day shifts potentially can jump on as well. So encourage you to do that. It'd be cool to it's always cool to put faces to the names that I've seen through email and through messaging here. So details of that will go up before the end of this week so that you know and that we can jump on there. So we're kind of counting down now. We're under 3 weeks to the assessment due date. So 11th of October is what we're looking at. In fact, slightly under 2 weeks. So time for the rubber to meet the road and get on and do it. Again, the resources and the support are here if you need them. Otherwise, continue charging on. I will put the resources up around the report over the next day or 2. So they're there as well. So there'll be no new content next week. We can just focus on engaging with the Q&A sessions if you can make it, and supporting you. And I'm happy, as I said, leading up to submission, to read drafts. Please don't send me something on Sunday night before submission to read as a draft, because that's not enough time. I don't have time to read it, and then you don't have time to do anything with it. So if you're going to send in a draft, I would say kind of nothing later than say Wednesday or Thursday of the week of next week to read submission. So I've got a chance to read it, and then you've got a chance over that weekend before Monday morning submission to act on some of the feedback that I've given you if you need to. Okay, so be safe, take care, and we'll see you all very soon. Ta-ta.